Well, good morning and welcome to another edition of Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training, and I'll be taking you through for the next 30 minutes or so with some topical news, some possibly controversial views, and some better biking tips as well. Got quite a lot for you to cover this morning. We've got a story about a rider pulling a gun on a driver and being shot dead in return. Texas, that was in. Meanwhile, in India, actually, it's not Pakistan, it's actually in India. Two motorcyclists beat off a leopard attack with a cake. Meanwhile, in Hull, a rider has been pulled up for carrying a motorcycle frame up the M1 strapped to his back. The former Land Rover Jaguar boss is the new TVS CEO, and students from Warwick University have revealed a Norton-based racer, which may possibly just appear at the TT. We'll also have a quick look at the MT09, which I don't think is actually a splendidly effective makeover, and the Xianglong JSX500i, another bike out of China, is equally ugly, I think. And we'll have a look at both of those. And then we'll finish off with today's better biking tip, which is a bit of a discussion about long distance commuter options. Who have we got saying, looking in at the moment? We've got Clive, we've got Nigel, we've got Sue, we've got Mark all saying hello. Good morning to you all. Nice to see you. Don't forget, if you are watching live, that's grand. If you're not watching live, you can always catch up over on my YouTube channel, Survival Skills UK. Right, so okay, before I go any further though, if I can get the right thing up on screen, I will just, there we go, that's the one. So yes, hopefully that's come up, and it has. Excellent. I will just remind you that I am delivering Science of Being Seen live on Wednesday, the 7th of July, 8 p.m. Now, you might have noticed that there is a tiny clash of times there, because, of course, that's the time that England will be kicking off in their semi-final of the Euros. So I suspect I've lost a few potential viewers straight away. However, what we'll be doing with these is I will be trying to run them once a month, at least initially, to find out how many people actually want to watch these shows. So there is already a second one scheduled for the first Wednesday in August, and I will basically try to keep them to the first Wednesday so that everybody knows when they're coming in. If you want to pop along and see the Science of Being Seen, just a few quick words about what it is. It's actually a presentation I created to tackle a very practical riding problem, sorry mate, I didn't see you, Smidsy collision. But it is based firmly on my evaluation of the scientific data that we have into these crashes, and it goes back into the, to the 1970s and beyond. So we do have a real wealth of knowledge about how these accidents happen. Science Being Seen was actually created for Kent Fire and Rescue for their pilot biker down courses. We won an international Prince Michael of Kent Road Safety Award in 2012 for biker down, which obviously included Science of Being Seen. And then it was used worldwide, getting a bit ahead of myself, nationwide until 2020, when lockdown, of course, shut down biker down classes right across the country. Science Being Seen has gone international. I took it out to New Zealand as part of the Shiny Side Up road safety tour. That was in 2018 and 2019. I was a virtual speaker on Shiny Side Up in 2021. Now, the bad news is that the fire services have actually decided to create their own in-house module to replace Science of Being Seen. And frankly, it's had a good run, and it probably is time for an overhaul. But it doesn't mean the Science science of being seen is any less valid. So the idea is now to open it up to anybody who wants to watch it via my own online presentations. So it will be the original science of being seen, and it will be the full presentation as well, which you may not have seen, even if you've seen it at Bikerdown outside of Kent, because they used a kind of stripped down, simplified version. So basically the idea of the presentation is to help equip every rider with a better understanding of how these crashes happen, where they happen, why they happen, most importantly, and also to make some suggestions as to what we can all do, some simple, effective and practical strategies for staying out of trouble. So if you want to know more about science of being seen generally, I suggest that you head to the Science of Being Seen website, which is coming up in a link just as soon as I have actually clicked the right button. There will be a modest charge for these presentations, just to help cover my costs on hosting and all the research and writing I've been doing on it. But you can find out all about the science on that site for free. And then if you want to book the presentation, that is the schedule of courses I've currently got set up for you. So, right, okay, do pop over there and have a look at Science of Being Seen. And if you're interested and I can tempt you, then there is the live show. Terry says he's watching something very average about Judy Garland. Well, that's an interesting choice. I suppose you're at the other end of the world, so it's not quite as odd as watching Judy Garland at 11 AM as it is here. Anyway, so right, okay, there we go. That's the Science of Being Seen. So on to some news for you. The first story is actually a fairly disturbing one, unfortunately. Road rage is a problem wherever there are drivers and motorcyclists, but in the UK it rarely turns deadly. There have been instances, but it really is a bit of a shocker when it happens. But it's not necessarily the case in the USA, unfortunately. And in Texas on June the 25th, Jaderick Gray, who was a 19-year-old motorcyclist, was actually shot dead on a Texas highway. Now, from reports, what happened is that Gray was driving a Kawasaki motorcycle between the lanes of traffic on the I-35. Now that's known as lane splitting in the US, and whilst it's legal in the UK and in some other US states such as California, it's actually an illegal maneuver in Texas. Now what happened next? Witnesses say that the rider was cut off, in other words blocked, by an SUV driver who was switching lanes. Police say that witnesses then reported that Gray sped ahead of this SUV, stopped the bike in the middle of the highway to bring the traffic to a halt, and then pulled out a gun. The SUV driver, who said that he had children in the car with him, pulled out his own gun, and there was an exchange of gunfire, and Gray ended up being shot multiple times. Police told the local news station that they believe Gray also fired, but he didn't hit anyone. A witness and paramedics tried to save the rider, and he was airlifted to hospital by helicopter, but unfortunately he was pronounced dead at the hospital. Now, as of yesterday, 9 days after the incident, no arrests have been made, but the investigation is ongoing. The SUV driver has not been identified to the press, but police say that they believe he was acting in self-defense. So very different approach to dealing with incidents like that in Texas. Slightly less distressing, but equally scary. In the Indian state of Madhya Pradesh, two brothers managed to escape a leopard attack by hurling a cake at the animal. Apparently what happened was they were returning home after buying a birthday cake, and Firoz and Sabir Mansouri were riding on their bike from Nepanagar town when a leopard apparently ran out of a sugarcane field and chased after them. It seems the bike was unable to outrun the leopard, perhaps not surprisingly, given what most people ride in India. And on this muddy country lane, the leopard actually leapt at the bike and started clawing at the pillion rider and the large boxed cake that he was carrying. So it seems he hit the leopard in the face with the cake box, and that was enough to send the leopard running back into the sugarcane fields. Here in the UK, police in Hull intercepted a rider as he returned home. Now, he failed to stop after a pursuit along the M1 and then down the M18, which you probably know leads to Hull. Nothing new there, you might think, in as much as that riders do fail to stop for police. But you may remember the insecure loads stories that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. They were prompted, in fact, by a picture of a biker with a huge load of polystyrene offcuts strapped to his bike and over the top of a trailer, which he was also towing. Now, in this incident, it wasn't quite as serious as that, but this is what happened. If I can get the picture to move. For heaven's sake. Right, finally got the picture to shuffle along. That's what we're looking at there. You can probably make out it's not a very good shot because it was taken from inside the police vehicle. But you've got a rider there with a motorcycle frame strapped to his back. Describing the incident, a spokesman for the South Yorks Police Operational Support Unit said, yesterday evening we received reports of a motorcycle being ridden up the M1 with a large piece of metal protruding from it. And it seems the dog unit made contact with the bike just as it joined the M18, and they identified the metal as that motorcycle frame that you can see in the photo there. The spokesman continued, what followed was a very bizarre pursuit during which the rider completely ignored the officer's requests to stop. He continued his journey, swinging his legs from the bike and even waving at other motorcycle riders. Well, terrible crime there, obviously. Feeling slightly worried for the rider's safety due to the large lump of metal strapped to his back, and as he clearly didn't want to stop and chat, the officers let him carry on his journey, closely monitored by our colleagues from the National Police Air Service, who made sure he got home safely. While en route, they guided in officers from Humberside who met the rider at his front door in Hull. Hopefully, when he comes back to South Yorkshire to speak to our magistrates, he'll take the train instead. So obviously the police thought that was an amusing incident. Right, what else have I got to say? Yes, don't forget, if you want to catch up with this show, you can head over to my YouTube channel. There it is, Survival Skills UK. Don't forget that all important UK on the end, or you will get shunted off to somebody lighting fires and sharpening knives and that kind of thing. The show goes out every Wednesday and Sunday at 11 o'clock. Okay, so what's next? Indian company that owns Norton motorcycles are showing that they are pretty darn serious about launching Norton and basically getting their product acceptable. And to do that, they have just recruited the former CEO of Jaguar Land Rover, who is now taking over as chairman of the TVS Motor Company. Sir Ralph Speth stepped down as the CEO of the Coventry car maker in September last year, and he will be taking up his new role in January 2023. So a bit of a while to go yet. He's obviously on a bit of a sabbatical there. Sir Ralph was CEO at Land Rover, or Jaguar Land Rover, I should say, for 11 years, and he's credited with transforming that company from something of a niche UK manufacturer to a global and premium brand, and something of a respected leader in automotive technologies. And one of the stories at least pointed out that the company is the first premium automotive manufacturer to design and engineer an all-electric performance SUV, the groundbreaking, as they put it, Jaguar I-Pace. Speth himself is Bavarian-born. He's also an engineer, and he started his professional career at BMW, where he stayed 20 years, and then he moved on to the Ford Motor Company. He was knighted for contributions to British industry in 2018, but rather unusually, he's also a fellow of the Royal Society. He was elected to that body in 2020, and that was thanks to his passion for science. It seems that as well as his expertise in engineering fields, he's also known for his knowledge of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So that could be a seriously interesting outcome for TVS and also for Norton. Gives you an idea of just how seriously they are taking the acquisition of Norton. Paul says good morning. Hi there, Paul. Nice to see you. Meanwhile, also continuing on the Norton team, students at the University of Warwick have been working to develop a TT-capable racer. Now, I did mention this project a few weeks ago, but the bike has now been revealed, and it's called Frontier. The project began back in October 2020 with the donation of a frame and associated parts by Norton to the student team, and they've actually been able to craft a functioning electric motorcycle in just 7 months. So here it is. There we go, you can see it there. A fairly conventional looking race bike, not surprisingly really, as it's built around Norton parts. The group of 13 students, who range from first to final year degree students, are supported by other students from the engineering department, and they've also got the backing of a team of leading academics and researchers. And what they've actually done is put together a high performance electric motorcycle powertrain for that bike, and it's rated with a power output of either 160 or 160 kilowatts, which is 201 brake horsepower, and it delivers 400 Newton meters of torque from a standing start. 400 Newton meters of torque. Go and check your own torque figures, and if you have a look at your torque curve, you'll also see that at 0 revs it produces 0 torque, and that's the big difference with an electric motorcycle. It produces maximum torque at from a standstill. So it should be fairly exciting getting something like that off the line. They say the acceleration and speed characteristics of the electric bike are actually similar to a combustion engine bike of between 900 and 1000 cc. So sort of it means it would be a ballpark racer for the TT circuit. The innovative parts of the project are an immersion cooled battery pack, and that's been designed and tested by the students themselves. It's the first of its kind which has been used in an electric motorcycle. Now, why do you need cooling? Well, the thing is, when the batteries produce their energy to drive the motor, they also get hot. You probably noticed that with your mobile phone, that it gets warm while you're using it. The same with a laptop, it'll warm up whilst in action. So the cooling system allows two things. It first of all allows them to keep the battery at an optimum temperature range during use, but it also means that the battery can be brought up to temperature before racing or testing, which means basically you get maximum power from the word go. Conventional batteries have to be warmed up a bit. If you've got a nickel metal hydride battery, no, I don't mean nickel metal hydride at all. I mean lithium ion. If you've got an LIFE battery on your motorcycle, as I have on one of mine, the recommendation on a cold day is actually to turn the headlight on and leave the headlight on for a few seconds, just to get the battery drawing power through itself, and that warms it up, and it means when it does deliver power to the electric starter, it delivers a bigger hit, basically. So getting the battery up to operating temperature is clearly important in a race environment. And then once on the move, the thermal management allows the 16 kilowatt battery to last longer too. If you keep the battery at an optimum temperature, you actually get more energy out of it, because So that's good news. And it also allows for short-term power peaks to be, again, for the heat from those to be taken out of the battery to stop the battery overheating. Whereas with a conventional battery, without the cooling, you actually need to limit the peak power that can be drawn from the battery by the motor. And obviously, again, that impacts on a racing motorcycle. And it even allows for rapid fast charging as well. The 16 kilowatt hour battery takes around an hour to go from empty to full charge, and you can get to around 80% of a charge in just 32 minutes. So we're getting down to the kind of time where you can pop into your Costa at the services and basically have a coffee and a loo stop, and by the time you come out, you've got most of your battery capacity back again. The battery case itself is manufactured by laser welding techniques, which are also developed at the university. And it's a manufacturing process that is scalable up to serial production. So there's a lot of thinking going on in this machine. The powertrain goes into a Norton frame, as I've said, and Norton's engineers have been on hand to help supply data to the student team and to mentor them. So a lot of things going on with that particular motorcycle. Okay, so that's, as I say, fairly standard looking bike, nothing particularly unusual about it. I'm just trying to find the next photograph. Where is it? There it is. But I have to say that when I first saw this particular bike, I thought it was the combination of the angle of the shot plus the rider's exaggerated riding position that made it so incredibly ugly. But it actually turns out that the new generation Yamaha MT09, which has just been launched in Japan and will be available there from next month, is actually one of the most gopingly ugly bikes I've seen for a long time. Now, we've got used to seeing the Yamaha Triple around now. It's been around for quite a while, and I have to say each iteration of the motorcycle gets a more extreme look. One writer described it as head turning. I would suggest that it's actually stomach churning. I really, really don't like that bike at all. So you get the same 120 horsepower inline 3-cylinder water-cooled 888 cc engine we're all familiar with. It comes with the now standard digital instrument cluster. You get full LED lighting, ABS traction control, 4 riding modes, and you also get the latest must-have for motorcycles, cruise control, which I have to admit I would have quite liked on some of the longer runs over in New Zealand. One of the bikes had it, mine didn't, sadly. There are 4 colorways available. You get a pastel dark grey, a matte dark grey metallic, deep purplish blue metallic, or a black metallic colour for the SP variant. I can't say any of them actually hide those fairly awful lines. The trouble is, pretty much wherever you look these days, the manufacturers really are wielding the ugly stick. Take a look at this monstrosity. This is the Xianglong JSX500i. Get all these letters and numbers in the right order. It's basically a 44 horsepower 471cc liquid cooled parallel twin. Produces peak power at 8,500, peak torque of 41 newton meters at 6,500, which kind of puts the Norton into perspective, actually. And that pushes the bike to a claimed and possibly rather disappointing top speed of 150k, which is 93 miles per hour. Now, the aggressive design that this is talked about, you get dual tone paintwork. That's what they call a muscular tank. Stepped one-piece seat, high-rise bars. Well, not that high-rise, but so it's a bit higher than standard. And they have what they're calling arrowhead-shaped mirrors, although they don't look like that much like an arrowhead to me. Bit of a blunt arrow, but anyway, there we go. Side-mounted exhaust, and you get a distinctive hexagonal headlight, which you can't see in that photo. Those 16 or 17-inch wheels are actually alloy, even though they looked a bit like spokes. They are actually alloy. Upside down front forks with preload adjustment at the front. There's a big alloy brace running across the top of the front mudguard there, and you get a monoshock rear. You get the now standard digital instruments as well, dual channel ABS. Price and availability not known, expected to be announced soon. Will we see it here? Absolutely no idea. Hopefully not. There's enough ugly bikes on the road without adding to them. Right, okay, so don't forget, if you do enjoy the show, you can always head over to my coffee page, and for the miserly sum of £3, which buys me a cuppa, you get access to over 400 better biking articles over there. And there are also a number of inexpensively priced ebooks as well to ride. So do pop over there if you have enjoyed the show. So on to the final bit today. It's kind of a better biking tip in a way, and it was prompted by a question that popped up on one of the motorcycle forums where I kind of hang out when I'm not doing anything else. And the question was, what bike should I use for commuting? Now I'll just put the question into a bit of perspective. The rider was talking about a 100-mile ride into London and back. So a pretty long ride. And I was thinking about that when it suddenly occurred to me that the answer to the question is no longer quite as simple as it used to be. A few years ago, I would have said buy a cheap middleweight motorcycle that either comes with a fairing, or if you can't find one of those at a sensible price, buy a naked bike and stick a full fairing on it. And then have your nice bike sat at home in the garage for weekends and holidays and that kind of thing. Why do I recommend a middleweight bike and not a big touring bike? Well, there's a very, very simple reason for that. You're going to be racking up big miles. If you're doing 100 miles each way, that is 1,000 miles a week, 4,000 miles a year. Work it out for yourself over the course of an annual season ticket to get to work and back. That mileage very quickly mounts up. Starting with the purchase of the bike, if you get a second-hand bike, you can get, I won't say cheap as chips, but you can get a good second-hand bike for a few £1,000s. You go for a new machine, and you're looking at several times that at the very least. And why a relatively small bike as well? Well, the answer is there's a 70-mile-per-hour speed limit on motorways. You can't go any faster, and a lot of the time you'll be going a damn sight slower as you get closer to London. So there really isn't much point in having a huge motorcycle. You're also going to be doing a lot of filtering, and if you're filtering, something like a big BMW becomes a bit of a liability. You've got to get through gaps. By the time you've got your panniers and your fairing on your BMW, you're almost as wide as a car. A smaller middleweight machine will actually slip through the gaps a lot more easily. On top of that, you've got your running expenses. If you're racking up huge miles, you will be consuming vast amounts of petrol, tyres, chains, and there will also be servicing costs on top of that. Now, a relatively low maintenance motorcycle to start with that doesn't use too much fuel or wear out expensive tyres will keep your commuting costs down dramatically. I mean, okay, if you can afford a big touring bike, fine, fair enough, but it's a bit like taking the train first class. You've got a choice. You can either sit in a comfy big seat in the first class compartment, or you can save a lot of money by compromising a little bit on comfort and going second class. Ultimately, the train still gets there. You might be standing, of course, that's the other problem, which is why people commute in the first case. But the other thing I raised, do you want to put all your money into one basket? If you've just spent, sort of £16,000 or £17,000 on a big touring motorcycle, that's a lot of cash to tuck into one bike. Now, the thing is, of course, there's a far higher risk of a minor spill when you're commuting in all weathers and on wet roads and in busy traffic. So a cheap twin-cylinder bike like the Honda 500 will probably bounce fairly well. A top-of-the-range tourer won't. It'll probably end in a splintering and an expensive impact. But how do you keep the weather off when you buy something like a Honda NC500S? Because they don't come with an awful lot of weather protection. If you look at the something again like the Versys 650, which is a nice little all-round motorcycle, they don't sell particularly well, but they are competent machines. Again, they don't come with a great deal of weather protection. Back in ye olde days, I would have headed off to the local bike shop, bought myself a motorcycle news, and gone through the ads for bolt-on fairings. But it turns out you can't actually get them anymore. I've had a good look around, and the people who made things like power bronze fairings simply do not make them. Possibly the rapid turnover of bikes has been a problem. I don't know, but whatever it is, the days of sticking a sort of a barn door fairing on the front of your bike for relatively little money seems to have disappeared. And the other thing that's vanished is the middleweight tourer. Most of you probably heard of the Honda Deauville. It was never the most exciting bike in the world, but it was pretty popular with couriers and also with a lot of motorcycle instructors too, because it came with a big fairing and it came with a couple of smallish. Idea was it was a bike that could actually slip through traffic whilst keeping the wind off on a longer run. And nobody makes those anymore either. Just have a look through the ranges of the manufacturers. You simply will not find any sort of small touring bikes. There just aren't any. WK650, there was a touring version of that, but that I can't see that anymore online either. So I don't know if WK is still even importing bikes from China. Aha, you might be saying, you've just defined the job of a scooter. And of course, in some ways, I would actually agree with you. There's one problem. Scooters are theft magnets, particularly the bigger ones. Whilst this discussion was going on, somebody suggested the Honda X-Adv, which is their sort of take on a sort of a dual sport scooter. It's a sort of interesting looking machine, but it's eye-wateringly expensive to start with, and it just happens to be one of the most stolen bikes in the UK right now. So there's no way that I would park up one of those bikes in London and expect to find it there at the end of the day, at least not for very long. Where do these stolen bikes end up? I don't know. I suspect a lot of the smaller capacity scooters either get broken up for spares, or perhaps they're ringed, and I expect that many of them end up in the hands of food delivery riders, either wittingly or unknowingly. Bigger super scooters, I'm not so sure. Again, I suspect a lot of them are broken for spares. The damage to bodywork on a scooter, again, there's very little protection for it in even a low speed crash. So I suspect there's a big market for panels. But I guess that some of them are also shipped off abroad, like that Honda I just mentioned. So you're commuting. How do you get to work? Well, at the end of the day, there are no easy answers. But what I will tell you from experience of being a courier is that if you are riding the kinds of distances I did as a motorcycle courier, you will wear bikes out very fast indeed. For a while, the servicing costs don't really bother you too much, but eventually you do get to the point where major components need replacing. You do hear of motorcycles covering ridiculous mileages. Some of the old Yamaha shaft drive bikes, for example, the XJ900 was a good example. They were capable of going around the clock 2, 3, or even more times. But would I try that on a modern something like a KTM? Well, I'm afraid I wouldn't. Not a chance. Right, so that brings us to the end of today's webcast. Just a couple of reminders. Don't forget the Sights Are Being Seen presentation, which I have mentioned is on Wednesday, unfortunately clashing with the football. So if you can't make that one, there is the second showing, which will be first Wednesday rather, I should say, in August, and I will try to run these on a regular basis, at least while there's demand for them. If you can't catch the show, there is always the book. That's the link to the Science of Being Seen ebook, which you can find over on Coffee. Yes, that's about it really today. If you're going out there next couple of days, I think there's some heavy showers around. It's Wimbledon, what do you expect? So stay safe out there, stay dry. Hopefully see you again for the next show, which will be on Wednesday morning. So look in then and we can talk about football. Did I just say football? Forget that. We'll be talking about motorcycling. Stay safe. Bye for now, and thanks for watching.